Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chelsea Echo and welcome to your Benfica preview. We do apologise that we did not give you a Bayern Munich one for the opening night of the Champions League, but it turned out to be a little bit of a damp squib. That being said, I think it's fair to say that Benfica may be the same. It is myself, Lou Beneventi,
Myself, Daniel Childs.
and we are here to give you everything you need to know about the special one's return to Stamford Bridge. But first of all, Dan, I think we need to call an emergency summit just quickly because we seem to have a manager who is getting the dreaded vote of confidence already. Where's your head at after Brighton?
I think there is concern. I think valid concern. I feel the longer I've sort of let the game digest and kind of marinate a bit, it's difficult at the moment to decipher whether the problems are systemic in the sense that they are something that is of real concern that is fundamentally broken about Chelsea, or it's just a shitstorm basically of a lot of variables coming together of injuries, individual errors, some questionable choices by Maresca in game,
Yeah.
and maybe opposition being really ruthless against us, that have led us into this place. And I think that that's the difficult place to be at the moment. And I guess that can only really be helped today by just more football matches that Chelsea are going to play. Like until we've got more substantial evidence, because we still are at kind of that weird stage of the season where, you know, it's not that you can't take anything from the opening period of the season, but you know, I feel like because it's all stop start and we've had injuries and you know there've been games that could have gone in a different direction, especially that Brentford one. I feel there's a hesitancy from me to go 2-footed in and say everything's terrible, but I'm also someone that I was expressing concerns even before the Man United and Brighton games about just our level of performance not being that great. So it'd be quite easy for me to sit here and say, "Well, I told you so," and these things have led to that. But yeah, but especially because you've had 2 games in a row down to 10 men, and it's like,
Yeah.
how many times are we going to see that again? That feels quite an anomaly, really, just generally in football.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. What wasn't an anomaly was Maresca's decision making, but one thing I will give him credit for, which I don't think I've seen a Chelsea coach do for a long time, excuse me, he actually admitted he got it wrong in his presser literally about an hour ago. So we're recording on Monday. He sat there and went, "Look, I made the wrong decision there." So hopefully that means that he's going to be, should it happen again, and should we go down to 10 on Tuesday night, that he learns from those mistakes. I do think that, look, you and I have discussed it in the preview, and we're going to talk about it in the Echo 11 as well, because there are more players that are injured as well now. The
Or
Club World Cup.
doubts. I guess doubts, isn't it? It's not so much they are definitely injured, but doubts. And yeah, we'll see
Doubts,
whether
we
that.
know that 9 times out of 10, we know what that means. That's a 60,
But
70% chance they're injured.
I guess to flip it back, like it seemed like Lavia and Badiashile weren't available for the Brighton game, and then
Mm.
they were in the squad, and there they were coming off the bench at the end of that game. So um, doubts, yeah. Until I see the team, and I think if you're Maresca and that again, that is the what makes this game awkward is that you would have liked to have been in a situation, not even like winning the Brentford game, winning the Man United game, playing better and more convincingly in the Lincoln game. If we just won on Saturday, there wouldn't be as much pressure on this game. The
Mm.
desperation to get back to winning ramps up internally and ramps up externally with fans. So that would have given Maresca, who's already struggling with injury problems and suspensions as it is, you know, more leeway probably to make a few changes. And the problem is now this game becomes more important than I think we all thought it was going to be when we played Bayern Munich. Like, I'm not saying in the Champions League context, of course, it's important. We need to start winning in the Champions League, but I don't think anyone suspected this game would become narratively quite big in terms of we need to start getting some positivity back here pretty quickly. So it
Mm.
again, it makes it a very challenging little period for Maresca until we hit the October international break, where there is now a risk that Chelsea go through this whole period only winning one game, and that was against Lincoln. So
And
that's
even
not
that
a
was
great
touch and
place to
go,
be in.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
So like
yeah,
when you write it down like that, that there will be concerns. I mean, the dreaded vote of confidence. We've I don't want to overreact to it because we've heard it all before. The only thing
hmm
we spoke about pre Brighton was I found it notable how the tone had started to change. But then seemingly on Sunday night, a brief was put out to suggest the complete opposite. And I find it funny because it's like, well, you were kind of the ones, or at least to me, at least, the moon music from reliable sources seemed to suggest, and reliable reporting seemed to suggest that things were not that great. And having conversations with people, like, there's just, I think, confusion at the
yeah,
moment. Like, is there something more going on? Is there not something going on? Is it just, again, is it a bad run of form that's just been a bit unlucky for Chelsea? It's been a
yeah.
shitstorm, and we'll get through it. Or is there something more going on here? I think it's just my confusion at the moment, to be honest, with what's actually going on.
Mm. Well, you and I have had discussions with people throughout the weekend, and people have approached us and spoke to us, and it's fair to say that this weekend, I feel potentially internally could have been a little bit of a turning point. Um, what wasn't helped was Indy Callier sending out a brief and going full on old school Indy, not new school Indy. He was getting things right and putting out some absolute hogwash onto Twitter, which people have eaten up. But it's not all happy at Chelsea. Maresca didn't get the tools he wanted. He wants to push on. He's told him what needs to happen to push on. We sat here and both thought logically, sporting directors are going to want to listen to him a bit more, considering that the position that Chelsea are in right now is down to Maresca's coaching. In fairness, you look at having Potter before him, Pochettino not able to get a song out of this team. He got them skin of the teeth, by the way, top four, Conference League win, and then absolutely dominated in the Club World Cup. Right. With all of that being said, it's important to realise that I think in the long term of this project, the long term being the 38 games last season, Chelsea were very, very close to things not working out. And it seems that the sporting director seems to have forgotten that. So when Maresca's come to him and gone, we need this, we need this, we need this, and this will make all of these much better. They've just gone, nah, it's not cost effective, we're not going to do it. Then obviously there's been a knock on effect. There's been rumours of for him doing a bit of a Conte in his Conte second season, not playing players on purpose, purposely sabotaging things. And it's a case of things need to be resolved very quickly. Otherwise, I've got a horrible feeling we're going to see another Italian man coming in, and people are saying he'd be a great appointment. But I'm telling you now, Roberto De Zerbi would not be a good appointment for Chelsea because he's as fiery as Conte and definitely not as talented as
Mm,
Maresca or Conte. If anything, he's a little bit worse than Maresca,
mm,
marginally. They're like that, but I feel like Maresca seems to have a little bit more of a level head dealing with certain things, which is what I think we need. And Benet Bali and Levi Colwill and Liam Rossinha having a chat with De Zerbi at the Marseille game with Strasbourg this weekend was not it made for interesting viewing. Put it that way,
mm.
especially with everything going on. So
I,
we'll
I,
have
I
to
do
see.
think that. Can I just say, I do think that Maresca handled the press conference well.
I agree.
Um, I think he really did because it's kind of a bugbear of for a lot of us, right? But I think press conference. I'm just puzzled sometimes why it takes so long for anyone to ask the relevant question, which is the relevant question at every single press conference: is who's fit, who's not fit. That is the most, with the exception of a coach being seriously under pressure or their first press conference managing a club, like their introductory press conference. Most of the time, all we care about as fans is team news. Um, there's no real insight in terms of tactically how Maresca is going to maybe evolve. Are there things we're not doing great as a team, like not taking as many shots? Our attacking players are not taking as many shots
Mm,
as they probably should be at this stage of the season. In games we're really struggling to get over the line. Those questions don't get asked. Listen, we both of us adore Jose, right? Jose Mourinho is a seismic figure in our lives, and he's a seismic figure in the history of Chelsea Football Club.
mm,
Um, him returning to Chelsea is always going to be of interest. Of course it is, but it doesn't. It's one question. That's all it needs to be one question.
Yeah,
It doesn't require half of a press conference, basically most of that press conference, to be about him. Um, you need one question, that's it. And I thought that Maresca handled himself well when he was specifically asked about like the chanting and having photos put up of himself, because I think those are the sort of questions where, you know, I almost wonder if it's from experience now of maybe some of the bad, because I think both you and I were not happy with the way he handled press conferences last year. And I do
agreed. Yeah.
ponder if he's learnt from that and has learnt that, you know, just I thought he was just very not distant in a bad way, but just very relaxed about it, and was clear he was not going to fall for those traps, and he was not going to put himself in a situation where it's going to be framed as him having a go at Jose Mourinho, trying to disparage winning trophies, you know, things that, you know, would obviously trigger people in a negative way after a bad result. So
Mm.
I've got to give credit to Maresca there, and it's a good sign that, you know, sometimes you can see it in a press conference when a head coach maybe is not doing that well and is maybe not handling the situation that well. I didn't get that vibe at all from Maresca actually in this press conference. He seemed pretty controlled about things, which I mean, again, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but
Mm.
I'd say that's at least some positivity.
No, I'd agree. And also, I think I know we're talking about Mourinho. We're going to touch on it very briefly, obviously. For people that are interested, there is a full pod on a top five Mourinho moments, which I can find and will reshare. Um, Fair to be honest, I think me and Dan should probably re-record that another time. But we can find it for you for this week because you can then look at all the Mourinho stuff there. It's not a problem because, as Dan said, massive person in our lives growing up in terms of falling in love with football. He's the reason I started coaching football, yada yada yada, etc., right? Um, I would say that the one thing he did was he actually gave a lot of credit to Maresca, and he said, "Look, like you look at what happened under Abramovich and when I came in at Chelsea and what the benchmark was and how that was set. That was by winning things. We won the Premier League. He couldn't win the Premier League because he doesn't have the squad to do it. But he went and won this and he went and won this. He's put an ethos in place, and that's what needs to be pushed forward. I think the problem we've got right now with Enzo Maresca is look. I think, and people will probably call you and I flip flop for this situation or whatever because we're both very much like, well, no, he's earned his stripes after being very, very anti him last season. I think it was fair to say. No, he earned his stripes. He deserves the opportunity. He hasn't. He should have all the tools. He should give him what he needs, and he's not had that. But he's still trying to put his best foot forward. In some cases, in the past two games, maybe not tactically as soundly as he should be. However, we shouldn't be changing a manager now, in my opinion. I think that there's no one better available that's out there right now.
Mm.
Despite the fact they're talking about Chelsea have spoken to Iraola, Chelsea have spoken to De Zerbi, etc., etc. Iraola, yeah, excites me. I'll be very honest. He probably won't leave that Bournemouth project. But the biggest issue that Chelsea face in terms of the ongoing problems, in terms of how they want to build and do things, Mourinho said perfectly, as to bring it back to what we're talking about, when you win things, you set your benchmark. Benchmark hasn't been set by the people it should be.
Mm.
And they've not made anything that showed intent. I think we were talking about it over the summer where we said, when we saw the Mike Mannion name linked, we went, oh, okay, that shows a different level of intent. That shows something different to what we've seen. But then it turned to fall into the category what we've seen over the past 2-3 years of let's put a brief out of this name. Let's put something out for this name. Let's put something out for this name. It will say we're going for him, but we're not.
Mm.
We've seen the same thing. So Chelsea right now, I think, need to consider their options. And we touched on it briefly last week, and there's no point us repeating ourselves because we said what we said, and we very much stand. I think with this of sporting directors now, they've had their moment. They've now been given a long contract. Lads, you've got to step up now. You've got to get the tools and get things in place because I think it's fair to say, look, I think I'm not going to say I told you so, Dan, but I did say to you, I said Chelsea short of a centre back and Chelsea short of a striker at the end of the window. And I said we're a couple of injuries away from things going wrong,
Mm.
and this is where we are. So
Yeah, I mean, I also said, you know, I mean, I brought up the risk of selling Madueke and Jackson, right?
yeah,
And I think with the way players have maybe struggled to integrate as quickly. It was the risk you took of taking players who were not extraordinary but were decent and were familiar with the club and familiar with the league and were putting up respectable numbers that were still young enough that they could go on and still progress in their career. Um, I think on both cases it was a risk letting those two players walk out the door, and I think that again, it's something you have to assess over the course of a season. But it's one thing that we brought up about the constant churn about this squad and the risk you take of churning the squad as frequently as we do. That it becomes very difficult, I think, for a head coach, any head coach, to kind of create that consistent bond and that consistent chemistry that you need, right? Um, that will create a team that can challenge over 38 games, not just about like the quality of the players themselves, but for a unit to be together for a period of time. If you, again, the 13-14 comparison I keep on bringing up, that was a squad that contained a mixture of players, some very young players that were coming into the best years of their career, some real legends in the Chelsea group that were coming towards the end of their career. But then, they got close to a Premier League title, but then we didn't make like mass change in the summer. It was like two or three signings that took the squad from nearly title winners to title winners. And my worry is that if we ever get into that position with this current model, what happens in the following summer? And my concern is what happens in the following summer is not you need it's quite clear you need this, and this. It becomes, well, there's trading to do here, trading to do there, and the model they've put themselves into and back means that there's going to be another churn. Like, is
Mm.
Jamie Gittins and Alejandro Garnacho going to have a couple decent seasons at Chelsea, and then we'll sell them off in a couple of years without upgrading them, without like and then you're constantly left in this. It's the criticism we've had multiple times, right? That like my worry about the mindset of our sporting directors is they think they're working at Leipzig, they think they're working at Dortmund, they think they're working at even at like a lower level, like a Brighton, like a Monaco, like a team that is never going to win a league title, is good for the level and size of their club, but accepts the reality that they're probably going to lose some of their best players. And it's like, that's not Chelsea, and that's also just not how you spent money. You've spent money at an exorbitant rate that kind of signals that you should be doing a lot better. And
Hmm.
I still think it is you can go, yeah, the injury to Liam Delap is unlucky. It really is. But we did still have Jackson there that they could have reintegrated. I can't believe that was an unsalvageable situation throughout the entirety of the summer. And again, like people, I think whether I completely agree with it in every aspect, like as you just said, you spend that much again, and it's like another season where people are looking at the goalkeeper and they're looking at the striker. And we've been through so many windows now that it's like, how is that still an issue? And I think that remains a, you can throw out all the caveats and the context of everything, but I think that still remains a question. And until Chelsea click back into gear, start performing really well, and put
Mm.
themselves in a position where they're comfortable in the top four, that maybe they don't look that far away from a title, that will remain a concern.
Mm. No, exactly. I agree. And I don't think it's been put better. That's the best. That's the best you've ever put it. The way they're operating versus what they're spending. It's illogical. And all they'll do is turn around and say, "Well, look, we won this trophy." I'm like, "Yeah, but the purpose is to build a squad to not just win that trophy once; it's to win that trophy again and again and again." Chelsea aren't in the next Club World Cup because we've not won the Champions League in this window. So, how does that work, boys? How do you answer that? How do you figure out that situation? They won't have an answer to it other than just pointing in some jargon that will come up from a PR team, and it needs to be better. But we should probably move swiftly on. We've touched on Jose a little bit. Look, bottom line is, guys, Dan and I are very happy he's coming back. We're looking forward to seeing him. I think that's all we can say about it, mate. Yeah. If we're going to stick, like we're talking about
Yeah.
Maresca, should we stay down the line? Yeah.
Yeah, I think pretty much like what else is there really to say about Jose? I mean, it's not the first time. The only thing I'm curious about is probably the reaction is going to be more wholesome than it has
Yeah.
been the last few times he's been at the bridge. I think the last
Mm.
time he was at the bridge with a crowd was Spurs under Frank. In 20, do you know the one where Alonso
Whereas Giroud scored.
or
I
Giroud
don't know if it was.
scored
Yeah,
Alonso
it was. Yes, it was.
with a crowd? Obviously, he came the next year with Spurs again, but I don't think he's been back since. So yeah, it's been
No,
what is that, over 5 years at this point? So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it happens. And obviously, Dan and I will be there capturing that atmosphere and then taking it in ourselves. And we'll tell you all about it in the voice note review. However, Dan, we have 5-10 minutes left of this pod. It's time to do the Echo 11. Do we be realistic, considering? And when we say doubts, do we just say they're injured for the time being? Because I feel like that's something we should be considering here.
Mm. We should be considering it, but I mean they're not ruled out, and I always think if you're a coach that needs a result and a player's a doubt and they're a big player, I think the sliding scale of like you're gonna maybe take a risk with them playing over not is probably more likely. So I
Mm,
think for both Joao Pedro and Moises Caicedo, I mean I don't think you'll see many predicted teams without them in it because
mm.
they're important players for us. So let's go with that, right? Like
Okay.
if they were ruled out, doubts are they and the way Maresca kind of phrased it, they need some things to check on, basically. So it didn't sound, at least his language didn't make it sound like there's a very low chance of them playing.
Mm. Okay. So with that being said, Sanchez in goal. We're going to go strong here, aren't we?
Mm, have to.
Sanchez in goal. Cucurella. Did he say Tosin was available? Tosin's still out, isn't he?
Tossing's
Tosin's
out
still
till
available.
after the international break, I think.
Okay. So Trev at Chimpong.
Yeah, I think it's a shame, right? Because I actually don't think Jarell Hatter was that bad. If you think, he was in the team
Mm,
with them being 1-0 up, and um, it was such a weird game that I think in some ways Maresca's subs just didn't help the situation at all.
mm,
So I wouldn't mind seeing Jarell Hatter play as a left centre back again, and Josh looked a little bit ragged to me when he came off the bench in the game, and obviously was his error led to the finishing goal basically by Danny Welbeck. Um, I want to see Reece play, but there is that part of me that goes, I know it's Tuesday, but it's Saturday to Tuesday, and then it's another Saturday game. I'm always cautious that is
I'd rest him.
Reece gonna start this game over Saturday. I think Malo Gusto is probably more likely to start at
See,
right back.
I know he is, but because it's the Echo 11, I don't want to play him. Dan, in no uncertain terms, he was fucking shit against Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, on both sides, right? When you have Malo in the team, he's there to be a wing back, and he decides to Ronaldo chop when he's got a chance to run forward into space, and then defensively, which is why logically you brought him on with down to 10 men. He prevents to stop the cross that goes in that leads to Welbeck's equaliser. So yeah, it was I think he almost conceded a penalty, didn't he? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the game as well. The only argument you'd make is then Josh would have to play probably at right back, wouldn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know whether Maresca would want to play his three potential centre backs all in one game with the current way the defensive options are. I actually think there's a chance Badiashile might find his way as a starter in this game.
That's even worse.
So I think it might be Badiashile and Chalobah as the back two.
Right, we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Because I think with me, I'd go Baddy Shield, Chalobah. I'd start Josh at right back, personally.
Mm.
Um, Midfield, you'd go for Caicedo, Enzo. Who's your third choice? There's no Andre Santos. Who'd you put in?
Am I blanking on someone because the Sugo's injured?
No Sugo, no Andre, no Palmer.
But Anote can play.
He'll be in then, won't it? He'll be going Note.
I'm not sure. Well, again, this is versus what's realistic versus what's R11. If João Pedro plays, I think I'd like to see him play as a number 10 in this game,
I agree.
um, which then means you have to. I mean, to me, like Mark Guiu has to start playing football at some point. You have him on the bench, you have him in the
Confusing.
squad. You need to start rotating. Even if he's used in a very simplistic battering ram sense, where he's there purely to occupy Benfica defenders and open up space for João Pedro and whoever plays out wide. That's what he needs to be there for, because you got to start using the tools that's there. I don't think it's helpful to Maresca, as we said pre Brighton. Like he can be annoyed as he wants, and justifiably so. Mark Gu should not be. We should not be in a stage where Mark Gu is under pressure to start playing and should be playing serious minutes. But it is what it is, right? You either use him and try and make the best of him, don't use him, and then tire out other players that then could lead to further injury or could
Mhm.
lead you to have limited options or cause you to consistently have these tactical issues that we've seen in recent games. So I would start Mark Guiu because then that gives João Pedro the chance to drop deeper. I think it's more likely, just given the way Maresca has not used Guiu so far, I think Bonanotte will probably play number 10 and João Pedro, if he's fit, will start as the 9.
I mean, I'd agree with your team. That's what I'd go. And it's the Echo 11, so we're going to go with that. So we got that, and then that means our wingers are going to be who? But I didn't think Pedro Neto had a bad game. I actually thought Pedro played all right against Brighton, and so did Esteval. I mean, do you start them both
Yeah,
again, or
I
do you want
think
to take Liverpool?
the yeah, it's tough because I think the wingers have had a bit bad luck over the past week because they've been sacrificed because of the red cards, right? And in some ways they're a little bit fresher because they've been able to play a bit more football. Yeah, I think it's likely that Neto and Esteval remain, but I'd be concerned if we go for another game with no Garnacho or Gittins, especially Garnacho. I think rightly people would like to see a bit more of him. I
Mm,
was stunned actually leaving the Brighton game that he didn't come off the bench. I mean,
mm,
it's like those are those weird questions where it's like you've got a guy who runs off the ball again down to 10 men attacking outlet, and yeah, again using the full you know size of the squad when injuries are tough, and maybe if Joao Pedro isn't ready to start the game, who then takes his place? Is it Bonanotte? Are you then shifting someone forward? Are you shifting someone back? Is Esteban moving centrally, which then maybe opens up the door for Garnacho to start?
mm. I go, yeah, okay, I'll go Nacho, and then Garnacho on the left. Does that mean Pedro on the right then for you?
Is that Pedro Neto?
Yeah,
Uh, Probably not. I'd go Esteban over Pedro Neto. Um,
really? I'm just thinking about Liverpool. I'd want Esteval to be as fresh as possible. I feel like you can sacrifice Pedro Neto. I know as much as he's a workhorse, he's like the Aspilicueta going forward, but
hmm.
I feel if you've got Alejandro Garnacho as an option on the left hand side, I mean, it's like may
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, no, I don't mind for squad's sake at the moment and keeping players fresh. I don't mind it. I just think at the moment, um, when you need energy, when you need creativity, when people are concerned about the team, I think Esteval brings that kind of energy to and
Yeah,
creativity to the team and flair, especially in a game where I suspect Benfica will sit deep.
yeah.
So you
That's
need players
Mourinho.
who are going to be, comfortable and confident to take the ball and to take
Yeah.
chances. And I think that's what Esteval does more so than Neto. Neto is
Okay.
just more a transitional player. Like I don't think he's never really been as good against a low block. Like I think he becomes a little bit too slow and predictable for my taste.
I get it. You've charmed me. We'll go with that then. All right, and so Legend, this is your Echo 11 for Chelsea versus Benfica. Robert Sanchez in goal. Cucurella at left back. Your two centre halves. You have Trev and Benoit Badiashile. Can't believe what's wrong with that. We've gone Josh Action-Pong at right back. Your two in defence midfield are Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo. We've gone for João Pedro in the 10. We've gone for Mark Guiu up front. We've gone for Garnacho on the left. And we have gone for Esteban on the right. But let us know your thoughts for your Echo 11. Let us know your thoughts about Mourinho coming back. Let us know everything down in the comments section below. This has been the Chelsea Echo. I've been Louis,
I've been Dan.
and we'll see you for the next one. Ta-da.